Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com, photo, video, digital media production. Today we are discussing Maid, the mini-series available on Netflix. Maid is an American drama, streaming television limited series inspired by Stephanie Land's memoir, Maid. Hard work, low pay, and a mother's will to survive. Created by Molly Smith Metzler. It premiered on Netflix October 1st, 2021. The lead is Margaret Qualley. I believe I first saw Margaret Qualley on The Leftovers, and ever since then I knew she was going to be a breakout star. Um, that was probably 5 or 6 years ago at least, and she was in the majority of all three seasons. And so, yeah, we've been watching her as early as 2014. She also had a small role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood not too long ago. Very young and talented actress, age of 26. So, she stars in this 10 episode miniseries. Each episode's around 45 minutes to an hour. Um, it is relatively a slow burn when it comes down to the pacing of it. It's a lot slower than I was originally anticipating. When I had heard um, references to watch it, no one really had mentioned that the pacing was of this nature, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Um, so let me kind of give you a little bit of a synopsis of the back, what it's about. After fleeing an abusive relationship, a young mother finds a job cleaning houses as she fights to provide for her child and build them a better future. This really focuses on um, the domestic disputes between individuals, specifically men that are abusive towards women, emotionally abusive, um, and possibly eventually physically abusive. But this is much more based on the emotional side. And really, this first episode, I'm not going to go into the entire season. I haven't watched the entire season, but the first episode specifically really delves into great detail um, about the struggles, almost having a step by step uh, of watching young Margaret Qualley. Her character is Alex. Alex having to, leave her situation of her current husband, but not only that, what all of that entails. That means you have to find a brand new house, a brand new job. You got to find a way to support yourself in ways that you weren't having to support yourself before. And they talk about a lot of it does feel very much like a PT, what is it called? What is it, PDA announcement of like, attention everybody, do you have any idea how hard it is to to get out of a bad domestic relationship, and um, an abusive domestic relationship. And this show is going almost step by step of showing how hard it is and how difficult it is, from the single mother standpoint, for her to be able to um, take on this task, taking her daughter, being able to get a new job, being able to prove that you can support yourself and your child. Um, I do feel that it can be hard to watch. It's not exactly a fun watch at all, but it might be what is considered an important watch, especially from, probably many men that haven't seen this type of story told to this degree. I mean, we are shown from from step one, I'm gonna kind of delve into detail of this first episode, but we see from the moment she's leaving, um, leaving the her house and leaving her husband, all the way to, um, trying to gain a new job as a maid. And so we get the step by step details of how hard it is to leave the person. Obviously, that's one fault of it. It's like it's really hard to leave someone that you had an emotional connection to, but it's another story that if they're, possibly endangering you or your child or your family or children, whatever. Um, but on top of that, it continues to show us how difficult it is if you don't have a strong emotional support system. We see Alex's mother in this. She is completely unstable, played by Andy McDowell. Her name's Paula. Um, but what I gotta say is, from the technicals of what this feels like, it feels very rich from the composition, from the acting, from the directing, from the pacing to the editing. Everything feels very deliberate and very full. I never felt like there's not like bad acting at all. There's not really bad things. Obviously, things that you're having to watch are hard to watch, but it feels very natural and realistic to what would happen in real life. It feels very much, it almost feels uncomfortably like real life, um, to that degree. Now, with saying that, the pacing is not going to be for everybody. There are so many hard things uh, that this main character has to endure, and you're just like sitting there along with her for the ride, and it's not exactly a fun ride at all. um so yeah, so if you go into watching Maid, know that this is a very important uh story, but with embarking on this journey to watch it, it's not an easy story to watch at all. Now, from the acting standpoint, again, I did really like having what Nick Robertson as Sean. Where have we seen Nick Robertson? He was the older brother in Jurassic World. I was trying to figure out where I've seen this guy, and Boardwalk Empire. He was in that as well. And he plays. I think he's the Love Simon guy, isn't he? Isn't he Simon? So the Love Simon guy is, I believe, the abusive husband in this, and so he does a pretty great job at playing kind of the angry, um, over hot tempered husband, punching walls and throwing shit and drinking too much and whatnot. Honestly, I've probably talked about it in a podcast or two before, but it's taken me a long time to realize that some people just really cannot handle alcohol, and specifically hard liquor, and it takes a lot of self awareness about oneself to to look at it and say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't drink this because I'm not exactly and turn into the best guy or the best gal when I drink this stuff. And so I can absolutely see how, especially if you're an alcoholic and you're in a relationship, that person can't stop drinking, and then thus they, unless they go through some serious therapy or a rehab of some sort, um, but they can't stop drinking, and then they're bound to act like a different person when they have the hard stuff, and it's extremely difficult to watch. I actually watched True Blood not too long ago, and there's a mother on that first season, and she is a hardcore alcoholic in it, and you can just see how it would tear somebody apart. And they do an excellent job in that show. But with saying that, it feels like it's somewhat of the same realm. This guy just cannot handle his alcohol because when he's sober, he doesn't seem like too terribly of that. He doesn't seem too terrible of a guy. I mean, he does. There are things about him that feel like they probably gaslight each other a little bit on both sides, but overall, we are on Alex's side, um, because the character of the husband is relatively binary, not that great, and we are following the struggles of Alex. He talks about how much trouble he's had over the course of them not being there, and she's like, you thought you've had trouble? Well, I haven't had money. There's been a ticker of cash that is completely depleting all of my funds. We don't have money to feed the daughter. I can't live with you. It's like, my mother's not helping. There's like a laundry list of shit that is happening to Alex as um, she's trying to dig her way out of being in this hole of, not being able to be financially stable, which a lot of it comes down to it not being able to have the financials to support oneself, and to be, if you don't have the funds, you got to get the job. If you don't have the job, you got to prove how you can get the job, which to get the job you got to have a living situation, so you got to prove where you're living at. And so if you don't have a place to live, it's like you got to have the job to live, and you got to have, which the chicken or the egg kind of thing. Does the job or the house come first? And when you're trying to get in a new you know circulation of having a job to pay off the house, um, it's hard to do, especially when you don't have that leverage and that money and that capital to be able to go out and do it on your own. So yeah, uh, we follow the story to the nth degree of seeing, you know, other types of stories and other women that have been in abusive relationships and types of stuff, and types of stories that are very much relevant and current to her situation. I will say, I feel like a lot of the people that she comes in contact with in the first episode specifically aren't very nice at all. It's the exact opposite of Southern hospitality. It just feels like almost everyone's kicking her while she's down. And then the one people that are actually trying to help her, she doesn't seem to really be taking their hand when they're reaching out for her. So, um, the one character I'm speaking about specifically, I don't think I have his name up right now, but uh, yeah. So, um, anyways, the one lady that was helping her with the domestic dispute, I think her name is Jody, played by Amy Reed. She was a tough ass when she's telling her, well, you can't do this. Well, you can't have a place to live till you have a job, and then you better go get on the ferry for 45 minutes and go do this, and then go get a job. It seems like a very, very difficult process, um, from what they were trying to set her up with when it comes to like the women's shelter and stuff like that. um, so yeah, that she ends up Alex ends up working for Value Maids, basically busting her ass just to get to this one location. And when she actually gets to the location, she passes out. She passes out onto the floor. And so I'm not going to go into too much more detail about it. I want y'all to watch the episode. But there's, this interaction with the housing owner, and, there's this big class disparity that we're going to notice and see between Alex's character and of uh, the characters in, quote unquote, higher classes. Um, because the character we're following, she's very much lower to middle class. I mean, she doesn't have any money on her, but she was coming from, her family was definitely coming from lower to middle class. And so, yeah, with saying that, there's going to be a lot of probably social commentary about the class disparity, the abusive domestic relationships and stuff like that. Um, it's probably going to sprinkle in things to real life people that are going through this situation of what maybe you should be doing. I have no expertise in that, so I'm not gonna go down that road. So I'm sure that there's more professional websites and more uh, in depth in the know uh, resources that you can go to deal with that. But I do think that this is the reason it's such hard, real subject matter that Netflix is dealing with by releasing it on here. So yeah, I thought it was successful. I have watched a few more episodes ahead. I'm not going to really talk about them at all. But there are a couple contrivances I'd say that feel like there's parts where she's going to have to go to court. There's parts where she has to interact with people, and they kind of, in my mind, they don't yada yada it, but they don't exactly go down the natural pathway of, I was like, you know, does she have the correct legal representation? I didn't think so in some of the scenarios. Does is this the thing that would make the most sense uh, at this time? Why are some of the women that are in the there's some women that are in the situation that she's in the same facility that don't feel like they come from the same class. It's kind of a small nitpick I saw, but like I would have, I assume the majority of people that are in um, shelters are in there because they can't afford to have an alternative or alternate means of living, and so that's kind of like the last resort. But I could be completely wrong, and it could be majority of it is just because they don't want to be on the grid. It really keeps you off the grid. And again, it could be a case by case scenario. Um, it's just like my speculating mind right now. I'm just like, well, why is she driving a Lexus? If she was driving that nice of a Lexus, why is she in the women's shelter? Wouldn't she be able to afford a nicer place? But that's not always the case. So um, that's where it comes in, where I haven't seen everything, and I'm not going to give my full opinion on the series, but I will say it's a very rich series when it comes down to subject matter and its subject of importance. So, yeah, let me know what you thought about Maid. Let me know what you thought about the podcast. Hopefully, this kind of enriches your ideology of what's going on here. I do think that all of these episodes are created by the same director. Is it John Wells? Let me see. Oh no, I'm wrong. Let me see. First episode is John Wells. Second is uh John Wells again. I was trying to just see if it's um, let me see. So there are a combination of 3 to 4 directors. It's not all from the same directing mind. Sometimes I like that, but majority is Mr. John Wells with a couple of different directors in the middle. This must have been shot during the pandemic, is what I'm gonna say, because there aren't tons of people in here, and I would assume it was shot over the last year. Um, but yeah, let me see what else. The production uh, gave production of the series order in late 2019. So yeah, it had to have been directed over the last 2 years. Um, yeah, let me see. Principal photography series began September 28th, 2020 and concluded April 9th, 2021 in Victoria, British Columbia. Oh, yeah, it is in Victoria. That's on an island off of Canada. It's a very beautiful island, actually. Um, which actually explains why the ferry is 45 minutes. You got to take a ferry to get there, and it can be quite expensive if you don't have a car. That can really add up. So, yeah, people are saying, yeah, really liking it. The review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes reported a 97% approval rating with an average rating of 8.3 out of 10 based off 33 reviews. The website's critic consensus reads, Maid takes great care with its sensitive subject matter to craft a drama that is not always easy to watch, but undeniably powerful. grounding to an outstanding performance by Margaret Qualley. Metacritic uses a weighted average assigned a score of 82 out of 100 based on 18 critics, indicating universal acclaim. Um, Kristen Lopez of IndieWire gave the series an A and wrote, "We need more stories like this." And hands down, Maid deserves all the acclaim it gets. Reviewing the series from Rolling Stone, Alan Sepinwall gave a rating out of 4 out of 5 stars and said, "Parts of it are deliberately difficult to watch, yet the show is surprisingly watchable to given the nature of the story, and at times even light and charming. Much of this is the credit of Qualley, who delivers a movie star level performance." And I agree. She's already worked with some of the best directors, Tarantino and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Put her in a main lead. I mean, she is the main lead in this, but put her in the main lead in a movie. I'm ready to see it. All right, y'all. Let me know what you thought about the film. Review, thumbs up, subscribe. Everything you do to support the podcast, 5 stars on iTunes helps. All right. Take it easy.